So what I will do in this introductory session, good morning to all the participants and a hearty welcome to this first session on this FTP program. So what we will aim to cover in this session, because I have two sessions. One is in this introductory part and one is towards the last day. So because I'm representing industry, so my aim is to excite you what kind of problems we are trying to solve in data science. At the same time, what is more important, being in the research field or being as a faculty, we'll try to highlight those aspects here in the first session. And then we'll deep dive into uh, applications, because by the time on the first fifth day, so you'll be going deep dive into, if I just flash the program, maybe this is what I received, maybe small changes maybe there towards the end. But when I'm covering the introduction to data science, I'm really focusing on core aspects and trying to excite you. Yes, there's a lot of problems we can solve, real world problems, interdisciplinary problems, as Vice Principal is mentioning, right? So that will cover in this. And after, once you go into the deep dive into machine learning, deep learning, and big data aspects, towards the end, I'll try to summarize again what kind of real applications we can speak in the industry and what are the different ways where we can look into that. So if you see the agenda for today, it is, we'll start with very basic, maybe first few minutes, because it's very common to get confused about these terms, because in the media or literature, people are using machine learning, deep learning, AI, data science interchangeably. So, but when we are deep dive and spending a couple of hours in this program, so it's our duty to understand what is really the difference, and then what is the data science life cycle. Most of you may be coming from the computer science background, but there may be faculty from other departments as well. But software becoming just like basic software, if not the coding and other aspects, basic software becoming democratized. Similarly, the data science or AI is also not specially or not specialized to only the computer science or data science field. So it is wide applications are available across all the engineering or even beyond engineering for that matter, including medicine, management, and all those. So when we talk about wide range of those applications, so what is the difference between software engineering lifecycle, which we all know, and how do we unlearn from there, and how do you relearn from the data science lifecycle, and why it is really required? Is it just a hype, or why even AICT is talking about new departments? So there is not just only hype, right? There should be some real value of what it can bring. So after that, I'll spend only a few minutes on what is basics of machine learning, deep learning, because you have exciting sessions coming up. So I don't want to take too much time. But my aim to introduce those concepts, or to excite you in terms of what is the best way to learn in those, because there are so many topics. So once you learn, so I'll try to give my way of recommendation in terms of how can you learn advanced topics and how you connect the different core subjects. So if you ask the key takeaways for this particular session of 1 hour, will be, maybe one takeaway is very basic terminology, how you can be very clear, crystal clear on using those, is one takeaway. Second thing is in terms of data science life cycle, how it is really different from your regular project execution. And third, I will say how you can connect the data science to your existing core engineering subjects. Those are the three key aspects. And towards the end, I will touch upon a couple of my blogs on interesting research problems. Even if you are not able to cover fully, that's good enough. So that is just to share the excitement in the beginning. And then once you understand the more details of these, and we'll see you back on Saturday. So in between, I'll just do a health check just to make sure, yeah, we are connected and then you are listening to me. So instead of just starting with the maybe the basic definitions or bookish definitions kind of a thing, so because I'm representing industry, so maybe data science may be a new field, and most of us think that it is just out of the blue moon. So some people in the industry are using it. It's not really like that. If I give a couple of examples, what I'm sharing it here, you and me, or even the kids at home are also using those. Maybe without an understanding, maybe a lot of science behind it, or maybe data science or AI behind that. So just to pick up a couple of examples, let's say healthcare domain. Now everybody's talking about COVID-19 or chest X-ray classifications, or maybe how do you say positive, negative. So even if you take an example of image data, take a chest X-ray image and the classification kind of a thing, whether it is really a COVID-19 positive or negative. maybe you can say it is very technically or maybe healthcare related one. Give an example of a social media. So everybody uses, let's say, this Twitter or Facebook and all, right? So the face recognition and tagging the people, a couple of years ago it is not there. Now if your friends are online in the Facebook, so you don't require to explicitly tag them, it can automatically tag. So that's on the image data. People are using that application of data science. Or most of us are using credit card, debit cards, and all. So there's a lot of security aspects where identifying the fraud detection. So maybe you can say that some of these problems are maybe 20 years or 30 years are old. Yes, maybe initially it is rule based or statistical based. Now we are talking about new methodologies like machine learning and deep learning. And more recent applications is a kind of a chat bot. So initially also chat is there, but now we are, as we speak in 2020, we are agreeing that be it your favorite SBI, IRCTC, any of the common websites or maybe the mobile apps, it is very common for us to have an interactive chat bot. It can have interface with WhatsApp or it can have its own interface of UI, it doesn't matter, but you are talking to the, let's say the chat bot really at the end. So what does that mean is the person at the other end may not be a human in the beginning. It can answer a lot of these common questions and going forward maybe complex questions as well, right? So these are just to excite you. Not This is not the exact to list, but in day to day life we are using these applications which are core applications of data science and AI. Maybe without our knowledge we are already, it is becoming part of our life, let me put that way. So another important point why we are speaking on this is, just think of it. We are all mostly working from home these days, and then last year we have seen how 2020 is, but there is no breadth in the terms of data we have generated. So most of us have access to the digital data. Then we have our mobile itself is a good source of generation of the data. So with the technology advancements, we are able to generate the in a minute of a day how much of the data we are generating. Now we are talking about GBs, petabytes of data. So what we will do with the data actually, right? Unless we analyze and then make some insights, then we don't really get a business value. Otherwise people will call it as a dark data. Yes. So maybe we are talking about privacy issues and all that. So that's a separate topic, who owns data and all that, we'll take it separately. But we are talking about access to the data and the technologies covering that analysis and all that is encompassed under the data science. And so many terms are coming, right? Data science, AI, and all. So if you see data science, it has three main components. Okay, so maybe a couple of pictures I use so that it will be easy for you to demystify what the term is. So I'm not talking on the bookish definition, that you can get it anyway. So what exactly the data science is, as the simple Venn diagram represents here, you need some kind of a domain expertise. That domain expertise come from any branch of engineering or any branch for that matter, doesn't matter, need not be even limited to engineering. Because I'm addressing to the engineering faculty members, I'm talking about different disciplines of engineering. But there is a role of computer science where you are talking about, because it involves programming and aspects of data analysis. Some of the core technologies, maybe computer scientists may be able to do it. And then even there is a good role of mathematics, especially the statistics, probability, algebra, these aspects, which intersection of all these becoming data science. That means there's a good role mathematicians and computer scientists can play the role in the data science. At the same time, let's say you are a domain expert, you may be solving a problem in the data science. Sometimes you may require a basic knowledge of, because already the computer scientists or veterans in statistical programming made this as a plug and play or offer it as a service. So then you can apply it in the data in your own domain, be it in mechanical engineering, civil engineering, any branch for that matter. So in essence, the data science is an integration of all three disciplines. Even when you see from industry, we expect the person to be having an angle of, okay, he should be a good programmer, a data scientist, the common role what we see in industry, right? There are so many other roles like business analyst or a data analyst or a data engineer. Those things are evolving now, but the general data science means you should be strong in mathematics, statistics, then you should be a good programmer, and you should understand how the data mining or databases connectivity aspects, and you should be having good knowledge on the domain. Sometimes it is difficult to get all combinations, so there we may need to compromise. Let's say he may not be expert in domain, but he knows little bit. Let over time he get into that. Or other way to look at is, he may be expert in domain and in his engineering field, let him acquire some skills of the data science or AI even over the time. So we should see the bridging the gap from both the sides. But at the same time, we do have a lot of big data availability. So that's what we talked about in the previous slide. Who is generating the data? We are generating that all this big data. So it has a connection to that as well. We'll try to talk about that. So another common terminology which you see is deep learning, machine learning, AI. So we are using interchangeably, but some of you may be already teaching this kind of a subjects or maybe know it. But in the interest of all the participants, one particular difference we'll talk about in this Venn diagram, or maybe kind of a set you see, right? The deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Machine learning in turn is a subset of AI. But what we mean by that is when we see different technologies of machine learning, be it supervised, unsupervised, all the couple of terminology we'll see, it will be applicable to deep learning as well. At the same time, deep learning has the basic neural network methodology, right? So artificial neural networks having that deep means maybe more than 2 hidden layers. Those details anyway we'll learn in more detail. But at the outset, a specialized way of solving the problem using neural networks is the deep learning. Otherwise, it has very common aspects it will share with the machine learning. Then the bigger question is, if machine learning is only a subset of AI, what else is part of AI? The bigger theme, right? So all our logic or Turing machines or functional programming or knowledge representation, ontology, all these aspects are part of the AI. But if you see why the more hype for AI in the last decade, maybe last 7-8 years in the deep learning, or maybe last 10 years, it's the machine learning. So that's where the major applications you see in industry using solving the data science problem. This is the core technology for that. So if you see how these AI and machine learning, deep learning related to the data science, maybe I don't have the diagram here, but if you ask me how it will do is maybe if I have a pointer option here, if I take a pen, so this is how it cuts. Okay, so this red circle, whatever you can see here, can be a data science one, okay, which has the components of AI, machine learning, deep learning, but at the same time, it has so many other coins as well. So what those indicates, maybe some kind of exploratory data analysis or data visualization or building the data science end-to-end pipeline. That is not part of AI in general. So all those aspects come into the data science. We'll see what are the data science life cycle, the bigger theme point of it. Okay. Is there any, if you have any questions, feel free to type in there or unmute so that we can address then and there, or maybe towards the end. So another maybe another key takeaway. So some of you might have seen this kind of hype cycle. It is very common in industry, but maybe for the academic people, it's not very common to see these hype cycles. But let me spare a few minutes. But let me just cross check. If most of you know it, then I can skim through that. You know how to read this hype cycle? Anybody want to respond? What do you mean by hype cycle, or what is in for us? Okay, there is a hype cycle. What is in for us? Do you know what is those hype cycle, or shall I cover those? No. Okay. No problem. Okay. So these are all available in the internet. So maybe few months old things will be available. Suppose if you ask for hype cycle for 2021, you may not get it for free. Maybe who are getting into the Gartner people, they will charge initially, but after 6 months, they will make it available to the public. Okay. So what do you mean by that, and why it is important for us? I'm just flashing two hype cycles of 2020, one for data science and another for AI, but you can see different technologies, emerging technologies as well. So Gartner is an organization which is analyst kind of a thing, who talk about what is the impact of this technology over the years. Maybe they can think of a bigger horizon up to 10 years or even 20 years. So if you see here, there is a lot, as the general term hype, there is a lot of hype for data science and AI. You and me will agree to that. But how much is reality to that? Every 2 years, some technology keep coming, but all of them may not reach to the expectation of the industry, or maybe the society point of it. There may be a number of reasons. It may be a good technology, but it is not economically viable to really implement or democratize. Okay, or it may not. It has given a lot of hype, but maybe some other technologies are past that. So there may be a number of reasons why that hype is not maintained in a way what we expected. So if you see 5 quadrants here over the time, innovation trigger in the sense, because we are all into the research and being the faculty, you may be interested to see some of these aspects, because these are all the buzzwords where people are talking about in the industry, where industry is betting on some of these technologies. Will all of them will be successful? Need not be. Okay, but if you see while you are reading it, you need to see the attention to how long the Gartner is expecting them to realize. Some of them maybe 5 to 10 years it may take to. What do you mean by that time? So it reaches to the masses or solve the real world problems. It may take some couple of years. If it is let's say maybe if you see Apache Spark here or predictive analytics here, it is already saying less than 2 years. That means, and that too it is in a quadrant of plateau of productivity. That means already they are available in production. Okay, so all the maybe the research problems, if you really solve and maybe it is economically viable from industry aspects, if you do a lot of research both from academia and industry, most of the technologies we expect in the last quarter to be available for us at a production level. But in between, if you see, one is on the innovation trigger, other one is the productivity. But if you see, there are other three quadrants. One is peak of inflated expectations. That means these aspects are very much hyped in that particular year. Okay, so most of the research is happening in that, and active research paper. How do you see that research is happening? Maybe top companies like Google, Facebook are talking about it, or maybe the top conferences having huge number of publications in that. Okay, so these are the, or maybe a lot of patents people are filing on those. So this is the next stage of innovation trigger. Innovation trigger may have some ideas which are maybe 10 years plus also. Let's say quantum computing, but the peak of inflated expectation means that means that as we speak now people are talking on those aspects. Okay, but it has some potential. Some of them, if it really able to reach the expectation of the industry, it may go to the plateau of productivity. Otherwise, some of them may go down into the disillusionment. What does that mean is, okay, they are successful to some extent, but they are not reaching the expected. It's not like a maybe I'm able to improve a particular problem maybe 10%, the accuracy of it, but maybe I use some traditional techniques, but I am not able to improve it by 10%. Maybe I'm able to do some delta 1%, 2%. I'm not satisfied, so I won't use that. So like that, if the people are talking about real problem solving, if you are not able to meet the real expectation, it may slowly die down. Okay, then we still need some support from the industry or maybe academia research to further slope of enlightenment. That means we need to still bet on some more investment or research funding from institutes like DST and all. So then it may die down, or it may cross that and go to the productivity. This is how you can read it. And especially, yes, we are able to read it. Then what is in for us? Okay, if you see here, in when somebody is giving a hype cycle for data science, that means data science is a hot field, or even data science and machine learning, this is combining that. Out of that, if you want to select a research area, or what is where you can get the more funding, what are the vibrant topics in that, so that's where the first two quadrants you should be able to concentrate. Okay, be it ML ops, like the data these AI ops, or ML ops, or explainable AI, or if you say decision intelligence, or transfer learning, or deep learning. So these are the aspects under the data science where people are spending a lot of time. That's how to read it. But if you see the AI being the core technology to data science, even there is a separate hype cycle for 2020, even AI as well. So that will be a little more talking on the aspect. But this is the same five quadrants you see. This is the same standard style. That means how the hype is maintained. It goes to the peak, and slowly when it is coming down, and slowly it goes to the productivity. Okay, so you can just Google other interesting topics from your side as well, and see where you can really bet on. Or if it is really 5 to 10 years, 2 to 5 years, that means if you are maybe doing your PhD, or maybe guiding someone, you can pick some of the interesting topics. Let's say AGI. These are all the real core topics now, with an intersection of this AI and data science. And towards the end, I'll talk about one of my blog where I have talked about 20 interesting research problems in big data and data science. So that may be towards the end. But at this stage, the key takeaway is I'm trying to excite you. Yes, these are all interesting problems, and this is where you can read, and then maybe suggest the students to focus on these kind of areas for their research or even their projects. Okay, so before I go to the little more deep dive into the topics of machine learning, deep learning, so another common buzzword we use is big data and how they are related. So this is also overlap. It's not exactly a subset of one to the other. Both of them are interesting fields, but there is an intersection. Without big data, there is no data science. That mean, what does that mean is, at the same time, at least from the industry point of it, maybe you may argue I'm doing a data science interesting problem. I have only some 1,000 data points. I'm still able to build a machine learning model. That's fine. That may not be a big data, but to go to the scale up and really solve the problems, then we can't escape the big data route. When we say the big data, there are a lot of V's, and in my blog, I was referring to someone else's representation. There are 8 V's. That may be too much at this stage, but even the 4 V's, what we talk about, the big data should have a volume should be more, then velocity, the way it is coming, especially the Internet of Things, or maybe this financial transaction, any of the streaming data, right? Then a variety, a lot of different forms of data. Then I have my own style of talking the different data forms or different data types. I have a slide, so I won't spend here. Then veracity. So what is the uncertainty of the data? So how much is the accuracy of that? So there are a lot of aspects which we can uh, maybe analyze in the big data. There is separate research in big data, but there is an interesting problems as an intersection of big data and data science as well. Okay, we'll talk on that. So the next, we talked about the first 10-15 minutes on the basic terminology and what is the how they are related. Then when we go to the next step is a data science life cycle. So why I'm stressing on this part is yes, you will be able to deep dive into what is machine learning, what is deep learning, analytics, and all that. But you should, while executing any of these data science projects, you should not go take the route of regular software engineering. Where regular software engineering, maybe if you see here, SDLC is a software development lifecycle, and DSLC is actually the data science lifecycle. So all the deck, all the material is already shared to the organizers, so you will get it. Not to worry on that part. So what we see here in the SDLC is, yes, we have a definition which is very deterministic in nature. Then we have a design. We'll focus first on design, then implementation, maybe in your favorite language. Then how do you deploy it, and then how do you test it? So this is a standard process what we talk about any software development lifecycle, right? So, but when it comes to the DSLC, it is very probabilistic in nature, and we start with some hypothesis, and we can't really design in the beginning. We need to do along with the data experiments, and then maybe we need to see whether we accept the hypothesis or reject a hypothesis. Okay, so that's where all the background of statistics, right, from sampling till the advanced methodologies of let's say regression on these topics will be useful while we are really designing a data science life cycle. If you see the life cycle, really it starts with the data. Actually, maybe the 0 point is actually having a research problem or a business problem. That maybe what is the starting point, right? I will highlight that point also. But once you have the interesting problem of a research problem converting into a data science problem, start with the data acquisition. What is what data is required? Then how do you prepare the data, right? So, and when we say data, my style of talking the data, I have 7 types of data. We'll talk in the next slides. But based on the type of data, we may need to require a different data preparation. Okay, because the moment we jump into the third step in terms of modeling, maybe writing your Python program or any of your favorite language, you may need to talk in terms of maybe some kind of a matrices or vectors. That's the standard style where the Python program can take as an input. So it doesn't matter whether we're giving an image or text or any data, right? So we need to do all this pre-processing, data preparation. There's a huge amount of literature in this, how you really do the exploratory data analysis, how you convert it into word embeddings, how do you convert it into the normalization, all these aspects too. That means preparing the data to give it to the modeling aspect. Once you have the modeling, all the machine learning, deep learning, what you are going to learn is part of the modeling exercise. Okay, when to use what, why we are learning all those aspects of different machine learning and deep learning, we'll try to connect the dots. But the one significant point which I can mention here is, while you are learning new topics, let's say you start with machine learning after this introduction point, right? Maybe then you are going into deep learning. Every time you question yourself, why I'm going from one technology to the other, what is the limitations of the present one, why people are craving about the new things. Let's say deep learning, you understand. After that, maybe people talk about recurrent networks, people talk about convolutional neural networks, people talk about generative adversarial networks. Okay, so why all these terminology is required, right? So always question yourself, so that that will help you to get mastery on the subject. At the same time, you should be able to convince the students and excite them while you are learning these, or maybe when the real problem comes, which technique to choose. If only there is only one technique, like a advanced one, if we can solve every problem in the world, we could have talked about only that. We don't require a big branch of a data science, right? But there is no single point solution like that. So the modeling, right, it's an art. The modeling is an art where understanding the problem, how you really create that hypothesis, and whether it can be solved with machine learning, deep learning, or advanced machine learning, deep learning. So those are the things. While you acquiring what really each method do, then the real sense of the researcher or a industrialist is on how the technology what we learned is able to really solve the problems. Once you talk about this modeling, then you really how you are evaluating, that is also equally important. Once you build a model, it's not like we have an expected output like in software engineering where I can compare it, right? But here we do have a ground truth. Some cases sometimes we may not have ground truths. How do you really evaluate? Okay, a lot of trade-off we need to require, and we may need to interpret the results. That's where the explainable AI and all people are talking about. It's no more a black box machine learning and deep learning. We are trying to understand internally how the real learning aspects are happening. Okay, there is separate field, maybe advanced field, but right now just want to make sure, maybe coming out of the illusion of it's a black box, it works somehow. No, we are talking about how do you peel out that black box. Once you understand the real mathematics of it or real underlying methodology within that, yes, you will be able to interpret the results as well. Then we need to really deploy it. That's where the real deployment, data engineering coming into picture. After that, real inference training. So there's actually two phases. One is on the training, and once you go to the operations, that means you are going to the inference level, and further optimization may be related to your hardware. So another point is people are generally in the impression that data science to solve, or maybe we require some big computers or cloud. Yes, that's true for training, but as we speak in 2021, especially on the deployment of or the inference or testing, it can happen in our mobile phones or maybe your webcams, or that means the edge devices. That's where the edge AI kind of terms we have seen, right? So this is what the information from the DSLC point of it. Then if you shift gears a little bit, okay, here I will take very maybe 10,000 feet level of information only, because I don't want to repeat or maybe waste the time, because you are going to learn deep dive into what is machine learning, deep learning. But I'll just touch upon only the basic or maybe very fundamental points only. The traditional versus machine learning, as you see here in our traditional programming, where you have maybe you are already masters and gurus in that, in the regular software engineering, where you are giving a data and writing a program to the computer, then you are getting an output. Whereas here you are giving a data and output. Sometimes you may argue, I'm not giving any output, especially in the clustering kind of a thing. I'm just giving a data, let it identify the patterns, and finally get a program. Okay, so the modeling of aspects of machine learning is actually divided into, so these are the very basic things I'm starting talking about to you at this stage. But the new methodologies like federated learning or online learning, adaptive learning, okay, don't worry about those jargons initially, but there are so many different methodologies of machine learning in the advanced machine learning. Okay, but fundamentally I request you to be strong in the traditional methods of like a supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. Then we can spend good amount of time in the advanced topics. But even in the supervised learning, as you see here, the supervised in the sense you have a data, and along with that you have the labels also for that. Suppose if I show a cat, dog, and all, so along with the image you may have that is, yes, this image represents a cat, this image represents a dog. Okay, so we have a direct out feedback, and then to solve those kind of a problems, either at a classification or regression. What is the difference actually? Classification means if I give a, let's say, dog and cat kind of an image, I am trying to classify if a new image comes, whether it is a dog or cat. Or more realistically, if I give a chest X-ray image, whether you can talk about it's a COVID-19 positive or negative. Okay, all this, what is this acronyms? Don't worry at this stage. So these are that like convolutional neural networks, LSTM, long short-term memory, recurrent network. These are just to make sure those are all supervised learning. You will learn those concepts in the upcoming sessions. Okay, but when it comes to the unsupervised learning, so there is some noise. Let me see where it is coming from. Can you please mute? I cannot see who is on, who is speaking. Maybe here. Yeah, mute. I'm able to mute. Yeah. Are you able to follow me? Is the pace okay? Is going too fast?
No, sir. We are following.
Correct. Okay. So in between, I'll just take a pause. If you have any questions, I'll take maybe for in next few minutes. After that, towards the end, also at least 5 minutes I'll give back. Okay. Sure. So here, what I'm talking here is a supervised, and maybe we are throwing a lot of jargons here, a lot of terminology, but that is just to excite you, or maybe if you're keeping your notes, yes, these are the terminology which we should be familiar. Most of the things you will be getting familiar during the program itself, but even that may not be the end of the story, right? So that is just to make sure, yes, this is a good starting point for us to learn. There is no depth of information in the internet. I'll say the problem is different. You have too much of information on this, which one to follow. Okay. Then if you see unsupervised kind of a things where we are talking about some kind of a clustering kind of a thing where there is a huge amount of data may not have labels. If you ask in the industry, 90% of the problems what we are solving is supervised problems. But in the upcoming years, my personal bet also is most of the data are is there, but it is not labeled. So you see increasing amount of unsupervised and reinforcement going forward. Okay. So unsupervised means this is also identifying the patterns, but without the labels. That's where the clustering kind of an examples. Okay. Whereas reinforcement means it's not like a business of having a label or not a label. We don't have a, but we need to have some decision process, just like the baby crawling and a small kid learning its how to crawl or maybe how to learn new things, right? So it's not like a standard process of a labeling process is there, but every time it tries something, maybe it hit or it fall down, okay, learn from the mistakes, go ahead, kind of a reward mechanism. That's how the reinforcement learning is happening. So once you understand all these, maybe we'll talk about advanced things sometime later, but these are the basic methodologies just to make sure you understand the problem statements. Uh, these are the methodologies I don't want to deep dive into because you are going to deep dive in the respective sessions. But at the high level, when you say supervised learning, regression and classification. Classification we talked about. Regression is maybe predicting a number. It's not like really classifying something. But if you say housing price prediction, okay, maybe because of COVID something impacted, but how do you take that impact and predict the prices in 2021? Then maybe we already talked about classification of just a chest X-ray. Then clustering kind of a thing. How do you maybe rank your students maybe with the different groups? Okay, maybe that means you are giving your marks and all. So let it come maybe as 5 groups. It can be formulated as a label problem, or it may be a good example for a semi-supervised. So initially you don't have labels, but you are asking to create 3 clusters or 5 clusters. Once you agree to that, maybe give a rating of A, B, C, D kind of a thing, or A plus B, A, B plus B and all. Once you have the data, after that it may become supervised. Initially, the labels are not there. You create it for a small subset using clustering kind of a techniques. After that, you are making into supervised. That's where most of the industry problems are, because it is a luxury to get a supervised. That means with a labeled data. Just take an example. When I worked in the healthcare industry, having a chest X-ray with somebody giving a correct label, we may need to pay maybe lakhs of rupees for the doctors to, or radiologists to really get that label, because that is very sophisticated skill, right? You and me cannot do that. Somebody needs to give a good ground truth to that. Okay, so it's not a obvious thing to get a label. So you need to have maybe small subset you can take, maybe do a human thing. Then after that, maybe using that data produce for some more data. That's how the industry is going towards the semi supervised learning. Reinforcement learning, some kind of a self-driving car, or the just like inspiration coming from the baby, how do they crawl, right? So those are the things which you can understand from the machine learning. Then when machine learning is so sophisticated, why people are talking about deep learning, right? So deep learning, we understand, yes, it's a simple subset of machine learning where you have some feature extraction as an extra capability, where in machine learning you need to do the feature extraction. What does that mean? What are important features to identify this as a car? But whereas in the deep learning, what we are talking about, irrespective of going into deep into how it works and all, that's a separate story. But by giving huge number of images, huge means maybe you have 100 images here in the machine learning can work, but maybe you are talking about thousands of images here. You are trying to understand what are important patterns, what are common things, even in the feature extraction. That's where the main power of deep learning is coming, which is changing the maybe the dynamics of application in the last 7-8 years, especially. Then that's where if someone asks what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning, my way of telling is it's a no handcrafting of features. Okay, that's the advantage in the deep learning at the cost of requiring more data. Okay, but another beauty of that is you can cross learn from different domains. Okay, because some of the things somebody solved in the image problem here, maybe somebody those same people can apply in a different, completely different domain, maybe in healthcare or a telecom or a banking domain. Okay, you don't require to start from scratch. What it requires is a lot of availability of digital data. Yes, we agreed in a few minutes ago that we have huge number of data, may not be labeled, that's okay. And a huge maybe shout out to the compute power available, maybe GPUs or TPUs or cloud computing, right? That's where this changed perspective of last 40 years happening, especially with more attention towards the deep learning. You will get all this history of deep learning. It's not new, but why we are talking about now, especially, is ImageNet is one challenge. I keep telling this example. Okay, when deep learning is dated back to almost like 50 years ago, why now people are talking about it last 7-8 years only? Okay, why? Because if you see a real challenge, okay, especially the computer vision aspect, this is a simple problem where there are millions of images. You just need to, though these images are not specific to any industry, this is very common thing like chair, laptop, mobile, these kind of things. 1,000 categories are there. You use any sophisticated methodology you want. It's an open challenge around the world. So best of the brains in the academic industry can participate. So while the challenge is going on, you need to identify what that object is. That's it. Maybe top 5 answers you can give, one of them can be correct. So if you see that till 2012 or maybe till 2011, the winners are the sophisticated people who use the machine learning. But in 2012, Alex, actually the Geoffrey Hinton student, Geoffrey Hinton is actually a father of, maybe if you see the previous slide, Geoffrey Hinton, then these Jan LeCun, these are the fathers of deep learning, actually, along with Ashwa, who won recently ACM Turing Award. You can get more details in internet. So why I'm flashing this slide is just to make sure to understand the machine learning versus deep learning. In 2012, the first time Alex used a deep learning real application to solve a real world problem with a gap of almost error rate of 10% difference. That means maybe if you convert that into an accuracy, 100 minus of this, let's say 84% versus 74%, 10% difference between a winner and a runner up. So after that, people did not really believe he might have really done something hard coding and all. But then he challenged, yes, this is my code. This is what I implemented maybe 10 years ago or maybe 14 years ago. Whatever Jan LeCun has given architecture, same thing I implemented now. So people started embracing that and appreciating. And after that year, 2013 onwards, we are seeing deep learning only winning the competition, and then everybody adopted it. Okay. So that's where the second wave is coming from the deep learning, where there is, as you insert more amount of data, you can reach the maximum performance, whereas other algorithms, there is some kind of a plateau, right? So all that credit goes to this deep architectures and more compute power and the data available for us. And you see a lot of applications we'll talk towards the end of the program, not now. So if you see the next 2 points, as of now, what I mentioned was just to excite you. Yes, there is a lot of role this machine learning and deep learning can play here. And the next promise I made to you, I try to connect the connections to the core subjects, what most of the engineering students familiar with. Here I picked up from CS and IT and IS, maybe some of them are common to any engineering for that matter. For instance, engineering maths 1, 2, and 3, right? In a standard terminology, wherever you are, you may be coming from different universities, right? So in that, this is very important for us. I'm trying to address here why that is important for, let's say, in AI and automation, or in maybe in general data science. Okay. So what does that mean is, once you have this discrete maths or statistics, those are the mathematical formulations in creating hypotheses and evaluating. So I tried to give you or justify you why the problem statement is not even deterministic, especially in data science, right? So right from there, right from the sampling of the data, what data is required, how do you create a hypothesis, you require a lot of background of engineering mathematics. Then the core subjects like data structures and algorithms will help you in efficient implementation of the model. Now just basic AI or data science taken it granted in the industry. Now how you make it as a more sophisticated so that I can run at the end even on a mobile or even on a webcam. So those are the things people are really talking about as an interesting research problems. So the learning from programming languages will help us not just only limited to the functional programming, or let's say if you see programming languages, I'm not talking about Java, Python and all. So the basic paradigms, right? So we are talking about machine reasoning, symbolic AI. So we'll go back to Lisp and Prolog kind of a world as well. So functional programming along with this object-oriented programming, there are different paradigms where you can understand and really solve the problems. And if you are understanding really the compilers and embedding systems or logic design, you can do some good job in AI at the edge. Okay, how do you optimize those models? Those are the real areas which you can connect to. If you see database management and big data aspects, you can solve really the data engineering problems. Once you have seen in the data science life cycle, it's not just only building the model, you need to see how you can really scale it up. Okay, then you need to require to talk to RDBMS or NoSQL kind of environment. Then another subject is neural networks or pattern recognition. Sometimes it may be elective, but otherwise there are programs like neural networks and all which can help you to deep dive into machine learning and deep learning kind of aspects. Okay, so where these basics are very important now. That's what I keep telling to these students as well, and even the faculty. I request you to advocate the same. Now when somebody is talking about, yes, data science is very fascinating or maybe IoT is fascinating, we are not asking them to start those subjects in the year first year. Okay, so the reason is, if you see, a lot of these fundamentals are very crucial, which they need to, which the students or the curriculum point of it as well, they need to be strong in all these, because this is a lifetime opportunity. When we really teach this data science even to 20 years of experienced persons around the world, we are still teaching statistics to start with. May not be too deep as a engineering student, but at least the basic thing what they really require. So once they're strong in these basics in first 1-2 years, it is easy for you as a faculty to demonstrate or maybe do excite them with the real problems, because they already have the good programming skills, at least in one language, or they have good foundations on the mathematics. Then it is easy for them to build and learn those aspects of, let's say machine learning to start, then deep learning, then advanced thing. Okay, then they want to go into the text processing or let's say computer vision, then you require other things like digital image processing. Okay, then you can it may be, you may not master all of them, but depends on your interest. And then maybe the subjects like digital signal processing also able to get a important role when you are trying to solve really a speech related problems or maybe computer vision related problems. Then the standard subject, maybe every computer scientist or maybe computer science student will read, is artificial intelligence. But that artificial intelligence may be a little bookish, but maybe machine learning is 1 or 2 sections. But you have other interesting aspects of knowledge building or maybe Turing machine. Those are also interesting, but some of the aspects of AI is still under the research, active research now, even though it's a world field, to democratize. As of now, we are betting more on deep learning and machine learning, which will be democratized. That's where you are focusing on these concepts. But data science is not limited to machine learning and deep learning only, right? So the underlying technology can be machine reasoning or symbolic AI or graph neural networks. All these also new upcoming areas. Okay. So if you see here, because I want to give some 5-10 minutes back to you for your questions as well, even though it's an exciting thing to cover a lot of fundamental points, because I'm going to see you again. So that's why I intentionally abstracted out some of the application oriented, started with the basics only. But I want to refer to you, let's say this one of my recent blog, because once you understand what these basic terminology is, then we go deep into that. But if you have some excitement towards some problems, right, all of you may not be connected to each and every problem we are talking about, but you may have some background which may be suitable, which may be in your pathway. So if you're able to connect to that, then you can spend good amount of time in the upcoming sessions, and towards the end we'll talk about the applications. So if you click on this here, or if you can search those, or even if you just Google also, you will get in the top list as well. So this is the blog I was talking about. Even if you were if you say research problems, yeah, in data science, mine will come in the first or second thing. Yeah. So if you see here the same problems. So what I'm going to talk about here, I'm not going to deep dive into each and everything, but it is anyway a blog available. So I encourage you to read that, and when we meet, you can ask more questions as well. So what we are talking here in the research problems is some of them are core big data area to scale, or some of them are how do you handle the noise and uncertainty. Some of the problems are related to the security and privacy. Some of them are data engineering, and maybe more interesting point for this particular session is intersection of big data and data science. Okay, suppose if I go directly to those things in the intersection of yeah, so approaches to make the models learn with the less number of data. So now we are talking about, yes, the if you have huge amount of data where the solving that way, with the deep learning is taken it granted, but people are talking now, can I get the similar accuracy with the less number of data? Can I identify the distribution in a more sophisticated way? How do I use the neural machine translation to local languages? You are all belong to different parts of India, and huge amounts of hundreds of crores of projects government of India is funding to improve this local languages, be it Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, any of those, right? So you can partner with the different IITs, triple IITs to participate in that. Then handling data and model drift in the real world application. Once you build the model, it's not like it's going to work forever. It may not work even tomorrow. So because of the change in the patterns of the data, how you make sure we are able to handle upfront, or maybe how do you retrain online? Those are the new interesting areas to work on. Then handling interpretability of deep learning models in real time. That means I was talking about is no more a black box model, right? So the models we are trying to explain, there is a lot of explainable AI is a buzzwords for that. So how the explainable AI is taking a good shape in the research. Then building context sensitive large scale systems. That means you are making a decision. The entire data science is to make the right decisions, right? So when you are talking about decisions, you need to be context sensitive. You can't make a generalized solution or a answer or a decision making. So how you bring that context sensitive system and that to large scale. Okay, then how do you build the chatbots which are generative based? So you may give standard answers, you may not require generative, but to engage really the customer, not to identify that the other end is a really a chatbot or a human. It is not easy now. So people, it can have a real conversation as if it's a human, right? So I highlighted some of those points, and towards the end I was talking about identify your core strengths and see how you can solve really the interesting business problems. And I advocated at the end uh, towards the ecosystem. So you may be an expert in a particular area. What I recommended there is have an ecosystem of, yes, there is a senior professor, then having that lab environment, right? So which is there in the Western world, maybe in India, I strongly advocate those, especially taking example of Western India or maybe IITs kind of example, even in your own universities or colleges, have those ecosystem, having some real bigger themes for those, and then solve some problems with you, and then give this bifurcated task to the master's or bachelor students. So that ecosystem, which I strongly advocate, and then publish in a good area. So those things anyway, we can talk towards the end. So let me take a pause here. And then I have given some references. So what I try to communicate in the last maybe 55 minutes is to excite you in this field of data science, touching mainly the buzzwords, what it is, and then excite you that there are interesting business problems or research problems in your terminology to solve it. And I left with you some interesting problems. All of you may not be able to connect. If you have some background, you may be able to readily connect to those problems, what I'm talking here. If you are not, then you may say that, okay, I'm able to get some sense, but I need to still understand the basics first, right? So that's okay. So you can participate in the other sessions and get the maximum utilization of the subject. Then you can formulate your research problems and then teach this data science to the next gen engineers. Let me take a pause and open for questions, please. I can see chat. You can unmute and then ask as well, or you can chat, whichever is convenient for you.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, is your session completed?
Yeah. So I want to give back. I have so many things to cover, but I want to give back few minutes back to you so that you can interact. If there are no questions, I can cover a few more points, but otherwise,
Do you want any questionnaire session, sir?
yeah, I just want to make sure.
Sure, sir.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yes, please.
For natural language processing, what subjects are preferable, sir? Before going to research on natural language processing, what
Natural
subjects?
language processing.
Yeah.
Yes, NLP. So in NLP, actually, to solve the NLP related problems, right? So you should understand two things. One is how you are going to NLP is a separate parallel field to machine learning and deep learning. Okay, so you should understand how you are going to solve the basic problems with the machine learning, deep learning is one way to look at. And second thing, especially from natural language processing, you need to have let's Python as a background because you need to see a lot of these NLTK. There are a lot of packages, right, to really understand what it. How do you maybe use really those packages? Python is a required thing. So machine learning, basic deep learning, and Python are prerequisites to start with natural language processing. And there are interesting courses on natural language processing, even in the Coursera or NPTEL as well, right? So once you have these three prerequisites, then you can start with the natural language processing. There also advanced is also there. Advanced means all these BERTs, transformers, advanced deep learning. But before jumping there, try to understand what is the basics of, let's say, the stemming, lemmatization, understanding the one language, right? The grammar, parsing. So those things will be covered in the basic language, basic natural language processing. Then the combination of machine learning, deep learning plus NLP, then you can go to the advanced NLP. Does it answer your point?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you are really interested, the one is an NPTEL course. There is a, I didn't remember the professor, but the Stanford has a interesting courses as well. Okay, Stanford University. That is also not very, I mean, you should be able to understand. So Coursera provides it, or even Stanford University also provides it directly.
Okay.
And if you ask the package why, NLTK is a standard one. NLT, I'm typing it there. NLTK, Natural Language Toolkit, actually, to implement. Because one is, my sincere advice is, one is learning these concepts, and second thing is you need to supplement with you or maybe as a team, right, with your students. Really try that. Okay, that's where maybe basic Python is good enough for you to try most of the machine learning things. Maybe for deep learning, you may need to require some framework that you will get to know in the upcoming sessions.
Okay.
Okay, great. Any other questions so far? So you may have questions on the terminology, because if you see or a recap what we have done, we try to give you because it's an introductory session, we try to cover what is big data, what is data science, what is machine learning, what is deep learning at a high level. Then we try to talk about very basic application, because applications we have that is just to excite you, those only we covered. Then different methodologies we are talking about, and how the data science life cycle is different from software life cycle. Then towards the end, I was talking about some interesting problems after connecting basics to your subjects, the data science aspects back to your core subjects. I try to leave you with some interesting problems that blog I covered. So that's the key takeaways from the session. Is someone speaking?
I request any participant, do you have any questions? Sir, if there are no questions, shall we close the session, sir?
Yeah, so I have one last remark because we are right on time, right? So yeah, so one last remark from my side is is just a starting point what we covered in this, and then you have lined up interesting sessions. So once you understand those, my sincere request is once you understand the topic of, let's say, machine learning, deep learning, big data, any of them, right? So how we will be able to connect or really solve the problem, right? So whether it's a research problem or maybe the real world problem, we encourage all of you to solve the applied research problem. So we are not really talking about, there are some theoretical points which you need to do that. If you're really passionate about that, yes, please. But otherwise, let's pick up some interesting problems and then try to see that. And towards the end, I will see you again on Saturday. I'll at least cover maybe 10 to 20 different problems, because by the time you are already, right now it is mostly a buzzwords for you, right? But by the time you are all, at least most of you are on the same page, you understand what we mean by computer vision or what we mean by machine learning, deep learning, different methodologies, some buzzwords. So then we'll try to implement that with the different applications. So the key takeaway that time will be, at least each of you should be able to go back and see, at least I have an interesting problem to solve, or I have some list of problems where I can give it to the students, or these are the things which you can really work on. So that should be the end goal, apart from your personalized goal from this particular session. I can see there is a raising hand. Is there any question? No problem. So that's it from my side in the introductory session. So over to the organizers.
Yeah, it's okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for having you here. You are one of my alumnus in my institution. And within short span of time, you have covered so much of knowledge to all the faculty members. Really, it's my pleasure for having you once again. I think, again, we have your session on Saturday, right, sir?
Correct.
Till then, we will wait, sir.
Sure.
Nicely. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, and happy learning.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye, sir.